I told my therapist I was done with men. Done with the endless explanations, the half-promises, the ones who mistook my strength for coldness and my silence for indifference. She smiled in that professional way, scribbled something on her notepad, and said, "Sometimes when we close a door too tightly, the world finds another way in." I didn't expect that way in to arrive wearing a delivery uniform. It was a Tuesday, the kind of bright morning that makes the city look freshly invented. My office sat on the 12th floor, walls of glass swallowing sunlight, the air faintly perfumed with coffee and the faint hum of an espresso machine. I was halfway through editing a client's campaign proposal when the intercom buzzed. "Delivery for Ms. Hale." I pressed the button. "Bring it up." The elevator doors opened, and the universe seemed to pause. He stepped out carrying a small box, tall, broad-shouldered, the sunlight catching in his hair like threads of copper. His black shirt clung to him in a way that was both effortless and deliberate, the top button undone, a hint of collarbone visible, that subtle rebellion against formality. For a moment, I forgot the box. He smiled, not the practiced grin of someone who knows he's handsome, but something quieter, warmer. "Sign here?" he asked. His voice was low, calm, with that unpolished confidence I'd forgotten existed. I took the tablet, my fingers brushing his as I signed. A small static spark. Neither of us moved. "Sorry," he said softly, though he didn't step back. "It's fine." My tone was neutral. Too neutral. He glanced at the art prints leaning against my wall. A habit of mine. Always rearranging pieces before committing to where they belong. "You have good taste," he said, tilting his head toward one, a minimalist photograph of sunlight through glass. "Thank you," I replied, surprised he noticed. Most people didn't. "I'm studying design," he added. "Part-time. The delivery thing helps pay for classes." I nodded, pretending the information was just small talk. "That's smart. Not many people your age think long-term." He smiled again. "Maybe I just like making things look right." Something about the way he said it made me glance up. He was still looking at the photograph, not at me, but his reflection in the glass showed the faintest smile, as if he knew what I was thinking. When he left, the scent of his cologne lingered, subtle, clean, like fresh cedar and morning air. The next week he came again. "A replacement shipment," the receptionist said. "Different package, same name tag, back so soon?" I teased, signing without looking up. He chuckled. "Guess the universe wanted to make sure you didn't forget your order." I glanced at him. The shirt again. Black, unbuttoned just enough to make sunlight slip into the hollow of his throat. He stood with one hand in his pocket, casual but composed. The elevator doors closed behind him with a metallic sigh. I caught myself looking too long. By the third visit, it felt less like coincidence and more like choreography. He came during lunch, the office nearly empty, sunlight spilling across the floor. He carried 2 coffee cups this time. "I brought one for you," he said. "They mixed up the order downstairs and I figured it'd go to waste." I hesitated. Therapists would call this a boundary moment. I took the cup. "Thank you." We stood by the window overlooking the city, the skyline a collection of sharp glass and movement. The air conditioner hummed. Somewhere below, a siren wailed faintly, distant but grounding. "So," I said, sipping the coffee. "Design student, delivery job, good taste in art. Anything else I should know?" He grinned, looking out the window. "You always talk like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're interviewing someone." I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in weeks. "Occupational hazard." He turned toward me, his tone gentler. "You seem like someone who doesn't let people in easily." The words landed heavier than they should have. "You read people well. I notice things," he said simply. "It's part of design. You can't change what you don't really see." I looked at him then. Really looked. The ease in his stance, the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to prove himself. The light traced his jawline, softened the lines of youth into something steadier. "You're what, 22? I asked. 23 next month." "You make it sound older." He smiled. "You make everything sound important." That disarmed me. When he left, I told myself it was nothing. Polite conversation, a momentary curiosity. But the truth was sharper. His presence had cracked something open. I began to notice when he'd arrive. The subtle rhythm of his schedule, the faint buzz of the elevator, the warmth in my chest that shouldn't have been there. I told myself it was just fascination, the way sunlight catches in moving glass. Harmless, temporary, until that afternoon. The office was quiet again, everyone gone for a late meeting. I was reviewing design proofs when the elevator chimed. He stepped in, holding another small box. "They told me to make sure it got directly to you," he said. "Very thorough of them." He placed the package on my desk, but didn't step back. The air between us felt suspended, light, sound, even time thinning into something charged. His eyes lingered on the book stacked beside my computer. "You read a lot about emotions," he said softly. "Occupational hazard again," I murmured. He smiled. "You hide behind the clinical words." "I don't hide." He tilted his head. "Then why does it feel like you're afraid to be seen?" The question silenced me. I took a breath, the kind that trembles at the edges. "You shouldn't talk to clients like that." He stepped closer, voice calm. "You're not a client." The sunlight shifted, glinting off the glass table between us. I could smell the faint trace of coffee on his sleeve, the warmth of skin and daylight and daring. "Maybe you should go," I said quietly. He nodded, but he didn't move. "Can I ask you something first?" I hesitated. "What?" "Do you ever let anyone make you smile?" The words slipped through every wall I had built. My throat tightened, not from sadness but from recognition. No one had asked me that in years. For a heartbeat, I forgot every rule I'd written for myself. My hand moved before my mind did, brushing a speck of dust from his sleeve, fingertips barely touching the fabric. He didn't pull away, and for a long, silent second, neither did I. When he finally left, the office felt different. Not emptier, warmer. The sunlight had shifted to gold, catching the rim of my coffee cup, the smooth edge of the glass desk. I sat there, tracing the memory of that almost touch, the question still echoing in the air. "Do you ever let anyone make you smile?" That night, though I told myself not to, I caught my reflection in the window, smiling without realizing it. And that's when I knew the line had already been crossed. The next morning, sunlight poured through my apartment windows like it was trying to cleanse me of what I felt. It didn't work. I tried to focus on my routine: green smoothie, yoga mat, inbox full of projects. But everything felt slightly altered, like the city had tilted a few degrees overnight. His face kept flickering in the edges of my mind. The calm certainty in his eyes, that unbuttoned collar, the quiet way he noticed me when no one else did. I told myself it was harmless. Curiosity, a fleeting spark born from boredom. But when the intercom buzzed again that afternoon and his voice came through, low and familiar, my pulse betrayed me. "Package for Ms. Hale." "Bring it up," I said, too quickly. He entered with a quiet ease, sunlight spilling behind him. The black shirt again. I realized then it wasn't coincidence. It was his signature. He placed the box down and smiled. "Should I be worried you're ordering too much?" "Occupational hazard," I replied, my default defense. He glanced around, then at me. "You always hide behind that phrase." "I like precision," I said. "It keeps people at a distance." He leaned against the counter, relaxed. "Maybe you don't want distance." The air shifted, a small current of truth neither of us could unhear. We began talking in fragments after that. Short exchanges that became longer, personal, unguarded. He'd ask about my work. I'd ask about his classes. He'd tell me how he sketched people in cafes, studying the way sunlight hit their faces. "Design is about emotion," he'd say. "How something makes you feel before you even realize it." I understood that. My own career, therapy, consulting, guiding others through emotional chaos, was built on that same invisible thread. But I never applied it to myself, until him. One afternoon, he arrived as I was rearranging the wall art again. He watched quietly for a while, then said, "You always move things around but never settle them." "It helps me think," I said. He shook his head, smiling. "No, it helps you avoid deciding what you really want." The words hit deeper than I expected. "You're very sure of yourself," I said. "I'm sure of what I see." "And what do you see?" He stepped closer, stopping just shy of my personal space, close enough that I could feel the warmth of sunlight bouncing off his shirt, smell that faint, clean scent again. "I see someone pretending she's not still capable of wanting." The sentence hung there, trembling between us. I looked down, pretending to be busy with a picture frame, but my hand trembled. "Wanting is dangerous," I murmured. "So is denying it," he said softly. Days blurred. He stopped pretending to have deliveries. He'd appear around lunch, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with nothing at all but an excuse about a mixed-up schedule. I stopped questioning it. We'd sit by the window overlooking the city, glass, sunlight, and motion. Sometimes we'd talk about art, other times about things that mattered more. Fear, loneliness, the ache of pretending you're fine. He told me about his mother leaving when he was 12, how he grew up fast. "I hate being underestimated," he said once. "People see age and assume ignorance." "I know that feeling," I replied. "Except for me, it's the opposite." He smiled knowingly. "You're not old. Tell that to my clients who call me ma'am." "I'd rather call you something else," he said quietly. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was alive, a pulse neither of us could stop. It happened one Thursday. He came in while I was finishing a video session with a client. I motioned for him to wait, then wrapped up the call, my voice calm and measured. But my heartbeat wasn't. When I turned, he was standing by the window again, looking out at the city. Sunlight outlined him like a painting, golden, serene, impossible to ignore. "Sometimes I wonder," he said without turning. "If you talk to everyone like that, so composed, so distant, that's my job." He faced me. "And who are you when it's not your job?" I hesitated. "Someone who used to believe in connection." He stepped forward. "Used to? Life teaches you to be careful." "And what if someone teaches you to stop being afraid?" His words were soft, but they hit like truth. I opened my mouth to answer. But he was suddenly closer, not touching, just there, the air between us vibrating with something fragile and dangerous. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered. "I know." "Then why are you?" "Because you keep looking at me like you don't want me to leave." I exhaled, shaky, unsteady. My fingers brushed against the table's edge. The sound of city traffic filtered faintly through the glass, grounding and distant. He didn't move. Neither did I. It would have been easier if the world had interrupted. A knock, a call, anything. But the universe went silent, giving us nowhere to hide. I felt it then. The surrender. Not physical, but emotional. The wall I'd built, stone by careful stone, finally gave way. The next day, the world nearly discovered us. We were in the lobby, the marble floor gleaming under the sun. I'd stopped to talk to him, too long, too comfortably, when a coworker appeared, all polite smiles and curious glances. "Ms. Hale," she said. "Is this your intern?" I froze. He looked at me, unreadable, and replied smoothly, "Just a delivery. Wrong floor, I think." She nodded and left, but my heart kept racing. When she disappeared, I whispered, "That was close." He smiled faintly. "You looked scared." I was. Of her seeing us? I swallowed. Of what it would mean if she did. He studied me for a long moment. "You're not afraid of judgment. You're afraid of admitting this matters." The elevator doors opened behind him, sunlight flooding the space. Before he stepped inside, he said, "You don't have to say anything yet. Just stop pretending it's nothing." That evening, I couldn't work. I sat in my apartment, the city outside glowing gold and white, the sound of traffic steady like a heartbeat. Every word he'd said replayed in my mind. Stop pretending it's nothing. I thought about the way he looked at me, not like a fantasy, but like a truth I hadn't allowed myself to believe. I picked up my phone more than once, typed his name, deleted it. My reflection in the window stared back. The woman who told her therapist she was done with men. Done. Except for this one. 2 days later, I saw him again. It wasn't planned. I was leaving the office, sunglasses in hand, when he appeared across the street, waiting near a coffee cart. He smiled when he saw me. Coincidence or fate? Don't start sounding like one of my clients, I said, but I couldn't hide my smile. We walked together, down the sunlit street, past the glass facades reflecting the sky. Every step felt like a secret the city would never understand. At a crosswalk, he stopped suddenly, turning toward me. Do you ever wish you could stop thinking and just feel? The light turned green. People brushed past us. But for a moment, it felt like the world had paused again. Yes, I said quietly, but I wouldn't know how anymore. Then let me remind you, he didn't touch me. He didn't have to. The promise in his voice was enough. Later, back in my office, I realized something had changed. I wasn't analyzing us anymore. I wasn't measuring the distance or weighing the risk. I was simply feeling. When the sun dipped lower, casting soft gold across the glass walls, I looked down at my desk, at the faint outline where his hand had rested earlier. My fingers traced it unconsciously, the ghost of warmth still there. I smiled. Small but real. And in that quiet, sunlit stillness, I finally admitted it, not out loud, not to him. But to myself, I wasn't done with men. I was done with pretending I didn't want to be seen. And somehow, against all reason, a 23-year-old delivery guy had made me remember what it felt like to be alive. The following week felt like walking a tightrope made of sunlight. Every step looked beautiful from a distance, but one wrong move, and everything could fall apart. I began to notice the glances. The receptionist who lingered too long when he arrived, the quiet whisper in the corridor after he left. The world had begun to suspect something, though neither of us had done anything wrong. Not yet. Still, guilt has a way of writing its own story before anyone else can. I told myself to stop, to create distance, to be the adult. And yet every time I saw him, standing in the lobby with that easy confidence, his black shirt open at the collar, sunlight tracing his jaw, I forgot the rules I'd made for myself. That afternoon, he walked in unannounced. The office was empty. Most people were out for a networking lunch. Bold move, I said, setting my pen down. He grinned. You weren't answering your messages. Because I didn't want to. He stepped closer, resting his hands on the edge of my desk. You didn't want to, or you were afraid to? The question sliced through me, clean and painful. I sighed. You don't understand what this could cost me. He nodded slowly. Your job, your reputation, your image. I get it. Then why keep pushing? Because I see the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Because I think you've been waiting a long time for something real. And you're terrified that it might actually be me. The words left me breathless. For once, I had no defense ready. I stood and moved to the window, watching the city below, sun reflecting off the steel towers, 1,000 lives moving in rhythm. You're young, I said. You don't know how heavy consequences can get. He joined me by the glass, his reflection beside mine. You think age makes people fearless? It just makes them tired of pretending. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. I turned to him. You make everything sound simple. It is simple, he said quietly. You feel something. So do I. The rest, it's just noise. But the noise came crashing in sooner than I expected. The next day, my supervisor called me in. There's been talk, she said, eyes careful but sharp. People say you've been distracted. I've been managing my workload just fine, I replied evenly. I know, but perception matters more than performance. The word stung. I'd spent years building this image, composed, reliable, untouchable. And now, because of a few lingering glances, it was cracking. When I left her office, the sunlight in the hallway felt harsher, less forgiving. He was waiting near the elevator, leaning casually against the wall. "You okay?" I didn't answer, just walked past him, pretending not to see. He followed. "Talk to me." "Not here," I whispered. "Not now." That evening, I found him on the rooftop terrace of a cafe we'd discovered together. The city glowed below us, alive and golden. He turned when he saw me, his expression unreadable. "You ran," he said simply. "I protected us," I corrected. He shook his head. "You protected your image." Do you know what it's like to spend years building credibility in a field where everyone expects you to fail the moment you show emotion? He stepped closer, the breeze ruffling his hair. "You think feeling something makes you weak? I think it makes me vulnerable." "Maybe that's the point," he said softly. "Maybe love isn't supposed to protect you. Maybe it's supposed to strip you bare and show you what's real." The words broke something in me. I sat down, the chair warm from the sun, my hands trembling. "You talk like you've lived twice your age." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I've just been paying attention." We sat in silence for a while, the air heavy with unspoken truths. Below us, the street pulsed with life. Laughter from a group of friends, the distant hum of traffic, the rhythmic clink of cups. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You could walk away," he said quietly. "Pretend this never happened. I'd understand. And if I don't, then you'll have to stop being afraid of what people think." I looked at him, sunlight catching in his eyes. Steady, grounded, sincere. It wasn't a boy's gaze. It was something older, something that saw me completely. And in that moment, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. He wasn't the one breaking my boundaries. I was. The next morning I called in sick. Not because I was ill, but because I needed space to decide what kind of woman I wanted to be. I walked through the city, through parks alive with laughter, streets shimmering in daylight, cafes filled with the hum of ordinary happiness. Everywhere I looked, people were living without apology. By noon, I found myself outside the cafe again. He was there, sketchbook open, sunlight spilling across the page. When he saw me, he didn't smile immediately, just looked, waiting to see if I'd run again. I sat across from him. "I quit my job," I said. He blinked. "You what?" "I've been doing that work for so long, I forgot who I was outside of it. I think I've been helping everyone else heal so I wouldn't have to face myself." He closed the sketchbook gently. "You sure?" "No," I admitted. "But maybe that's okay." He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. A small, grounding gesture. "So what now?" "I don't know. I just know I don't want to keep hiding from what feels right." The sunlight hit the rim of his cup, scattering gold across the table between us. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to analyze the moment. I just lived in it. Weeks passed. I started freelancing, smaller projects, less structure, more freedom. He finished his semester and began designing a campaign for a local brand. We'd meet in open-air cafes, in sunlit studios, in spaces where the world could see us, because secrecy had lost its thrill. There were whispers, of course. People always talk, but I found I didn't care. One afternoon, he showed me a prototype of his project, a minimalist poster, all clean lines and light. In the corner, a single phrase. "You looked at me, and I became real." I traced the words with my fingertip. "That's beautiful," he smiled. "You inspired it." For a moment I couldn't speak. The sunlight filtered through the glass wall behind him, outlining his profile in a halo of gold. "Do you ever think," I asked softly, "that we met at the exact wrong time?" He shook his head. "No. I think we met when you finally stopped running." A month later, I walked past my old office building. The glass facade caught the afternoon light, blinding and brilliant. For the first time, I didn't feel nostalgia or regret, just gratitude. I sat on a nearby bench, phone buzzing with a message. "Coffee and 20? Rooftop spot." I smiled. When I arrived, he was already there, leaning on the railing, that black shirt catching the breeze, collar open, sunlight painting him in warmth. He turned when he heard my footsteps, his smile slow and sure, "Did you ever tell your therapist?" he asked. I laughed. "She told me I'd find a new way in." She was right. We stood side by side, watching the city shimmer below us. Cars glinting like moving mirrors, people laughing in the streets, the air thick with life and possibility. For a long time, neither of us spoke. There was no need. The silence between us was full, not of tension, but peace. He reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with quiet certainty. And for once, I didn't overthink it. I didn't analyze or measure or fear. I just let the sunlight find us. Final paragraph. Quiet, cinematic closure. You had told me months ago that a delivery mix-up would unravel everything I thought I knew about love. I would have smiled politely and changed the subject. But now, standing here with him, the world bright and unashamed around us, I understand. Sometimes the heart doesn't need permission. It just needs a little light to see what was always waiting to grow. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever been afraid to feel again or found light in someone unexpected, drop AI in the comments. Tell me which moment hit you hardest and what you think she should have done differently. Don't forget to subscribe for more Sunlit, emotionally charged love stories. New names, new faces, new hearts every time. Your next favorite confession is already on the way.